Hello viewers, welcome to the channel and to a new video. This is a model that has been designed before using the old stable version of FreeCAD, the FreeCAD 0.21.2. And in today's video, the idea is to try to model the same 3D model in the current stable version of FreeCAD, the FreeCAD 1.0. I haven't tried in the developer version and honestly it didn't work. You are free to try too, because computers and operating systems are different and it seems that there are systems that work better with FreeCAD. I am a Windows user in a ThinkPad T490 notebook, but let's leave that aside and see how I designed the parts of this 3D model in FreeCAD 1.0 and the problems I encountered. On the start page of FreeCAD 1.0, I will create a new blank document pressing Empty File. On the tree view, I will create a part-time body object to store the creation history of the first 3D model, the first part. As you see, this model is a set of 3 parts, the first part here, the second part here, and the last part here. I will start creating the first part. So I go to my document and I will start adding material to the document using the additive tools of part-time workbench. To create the first shape, I will use a additive cylinder tool. It is a primitive shape. To do that, I go to additive tools of part-time and I click on this arrow to expand the primitive shapes tools. And I select additive cylinder. And next I choose to attach the cylinder on the XY plane. Select XY plane. And on this task panel, on primitive parameters, I will change the radius to 53 for this cylinder and I will set a height of 20 millimeters and then press OK to finish this and then press Home on the keyboard to see this. Now I will rotate this view and select the bottom face to create a thickness on this part here. So with this face selected, I click on this icon, thickness tool, and I change the thickness here on this field, and then I press OK. And I have this. Now I will create a cylinder on this face here. To do that, I can use the additive cylinder tool. I just click on this tool here and then select this face to attach this cylinder. And next I change the radius of this cylinder to 15 millimeters, set 7, and then OK. Next, I want to add an angle on the cylinder. To do that, I can use the draft tool, this tool. But before I click on this icon, I have to select, for example, this face here, and then click on this tool, the draft tool. And now I have to set a neutral plane for this operation. I click on this button, and then I select this face. And I can increase the draft angle to something like 45 degrees, for example. And I have this. Now I press OK to finish this, and the next thing that I will do is to create fillets on this part here, as we see here. So I will start selecting this face here, and now I will hold Ctrl key and select this edge. And now I click on fillet tool and I change the radius to 2 millimeters, and then I press OK, and I have this. Now I will create a small fillet on this edge here. I select this edge and I create a fillet of 5 millimeters here and enter. Now I will create a hole on this face here, as we see here. So I select this face and then I click on the hole tool. First I change the diameter of this hole to 10 millimeters and the depth to 5th, for example, and then OK. And this is the first 3D model and the design is finished. So now I will disable this body and select it and spacebar to hide the body. And now I will create a new body, a new part-time body object to store the creation history of the second model. So I click on this to create a new body object. And here I will use an additive cylinder tool to create the first shape. So I click here on this icon and I press Home and I select the XY plane for this cylinder, and first I change the radius to 50 millimeters and the height to 120 millimeters, and then I press OK to finish this. Now I click off and Home on the keyboard. Now the idea is to create a thickness on the cylinder to create this hole. So what I'll do is to select the stop face here and rotate the view, control, this face, and next thickness tool, this tool. And here I will change the thickness of this part to 2.5 millimeters. And okay. Now the next operations will be done on the curved workbench. So I click in here and I select curved workbench. Now that this workbench is an external workbench, so if you don't have it in your FreeCAD program, you have to install it. And the way to install it is to go to Tools and click on Add-on Manager option and install the workbench. Okay. The next thing that we'll do is to attach a sketch on the surface here. The way to do that is to first select the surface, this one here, and then use this tool here to map a sketch on it. So I click on this icon, and as you can see, I have a new object on the tree view. Now, if I click on this arrow, as you can see, I have a mapped sketch, this sketch here. I double click on this sketch, and here we have a geometry, this rectangle with these dimensions. This dimension here, 120 millimeters, is the height of the cylinder, and this dimension here is the perimeter of this edge here. I will start creating a rectangular geometry. To do that, I go to Sketcher Geometry of Sketcher Workbench and then select Cycle Tool, and then I create this rectangle as you see. Now I skip this tool, and what I'll do next is to delete these vertical and the horizontal constraints. To do that easily, I go to the task panel, I go to constraints and scroll down, and next I select this constraint here. I hold Shift key and I click on this last constraint here and I delete, and as you can see, the signals disappeared from this rectangle. Now I can move this in this way. Like so, and next I will use the perpendicular constraint to make these lines perpendicular. And I have these 5 degrees of freedom, as you can see here. Next, I will use the constraint horizontal and vertical to constrain this rectangle. So I click here on this icon and I make these 2 points horizontal constrained and these 2 points vertical constrained. So now I have 3 degrees of freedom. This geometry is a square geometry. So now I will use the dimension tool to set the height of this geometry. So I click here on this point and now on this point here, and I set a length of 10 millimeters for this geometry, and I have this as you can see. 2 degrees of freedom now. Now I skip this tool and I choose to hide these all constraints here by clicking on this icon here. Now I select this geometry, Ctrl C and now Ctrl V, and next I will drag this to here, and as you can see now I have duplicated this rectangle. I click here 2 times to hide all constraints, and next I will use a construction line to join these 2 geometries. To do that, I go to Sketcher Geometry and I select Line Tool, and now I create a line between these 2 points here, and next I escape this tool, I select this line and I change it to construction geometry. Next I will make this line parallel to this one. I select parallel constraint and I make these 2 lines parallel. Okay, now I drag this point to here, and next I use the dimension tool and I select, for example, this point, and I set a height of 16 millimeters for these 2 geometries. 2 degrees of freedom now, as you can see. Now I'll skip this tool and I will drag this geometry to here, constraint horizontal and vertical. So now I select this point and this point to apply a vertical constraint, and this point and this one here to apply a vertical or horizontal constraint. And as you can see, this sketch is full constrained. So now I close this, and as you can see, I have small shapes here. Now I will increase the size of these shapes here. To do that, I go to the sketch on surface object and I go to settings. The first thing that I do here is to fill the faces, setting through here. And now I will close this start page. And next I will increase the thickness here to, for example, 6 millimeters and enter. And as you can see, I have this. Now I will change the offset here to, let's say, minus 3 millimeters. And I have this, as you can see. Now that I have these shapes here, the next thing that I'll do is to create arrays. I will create a polar array and next I will create a linear array of these two objects. To do that, I have to use the draft workbench. I think you understand why. So I click on the workbench selector and I go to the draft workbench. And the first thing that I'll do here is to hide this grid here. To do that, I click on this icon and I close this body and also this arrow. And now I selected the sketch on surface object and I go to this tool here. I click on this arrow to expand these tools here and first I select polar array. And now I change the number of elements to 27 and I reset the center of rotation of this operation. I click here on this button and next I press OK, and as you can see I have this. Now what I will do is to change the placement of this array on the Z direction. To do that, I select this array and I go to placement, base, placement, and now position. I change the Z position here to, let's say, 11. Yes, it's okay. Next, I will create a linear array of this polar array here. To do that, I have to select the array here on the tree view and then go to this tool again, click on this arrow. This time select this first option, array. And now to create a linear array on the Z direction, what I have to do is to set 1 for the X and Y direction. And for example, in the Z direction, I'll set 12 elements and scroll down to the Z intervals and set, for example, 11 millimeters. And then scroll up and now I press OK to finish this. As you can see, I have this linear array but in the wrong direction. I want this array to go in this direction, in the negative direction. So what I do, I select this array and what I have to do is to scroll down here to this parameter, go to Z interval Z, and here what I have to do is to change this value to a negative value. So I will set minus 11 here and enter, and as you can see I have this. Now that I have this body and this array, I can create this shape here. I can create this model here, this part here. To do that, I will need to remove this array from this body. And the way to do that is to use the part workbench. So I will go to the workbench selector and select part workbench. And to do that, I will be using this tool here, the cut tool. So now I select the body object and now control this array here. So I want to remove this array from this body. So this is why I selected the body first and last I selected the array. Now I click on cut tool to remove the material. As you can see, here is the model. So the second model is finished. I think it's all okay here on this model. It's the same thing that we have here on this document with a different color, as you see. And now that I finished this, the next thing that I'll do is to create this last model here. The way to create this is very easy. So I can, for example, clone this first part here to create this, or I can create a simple copy on the part workbench. Let me show you how you can do that. So first I will make this body visible. I will select this and spacebar to make it visible. And as you can see, the body is here. Now I will select this body and go to part, and now I find this option, create a copy, and then this option, create a simple copy. As you can see, now I have this new body object on the tree view. I can double click on this to move using the transform tool, and now I can drag this using this arrow, and as you can see here, I have this. Okay, I have this copy. Another way to do that is to use the clone tool of the draft workbench. So I will select this body and delete it, and I will move to the draft workbench, and I will select this body and create a clone. Now I'll try to place this body and this clone here in the correct places. For example, I will select this body, right click, and then select the transform tool. Here I'm using 1 mm for the increment and angle of 9 degrees for the rotation increment. I will change to the front view, and I will move this object using this arrow to here, and okay. Now I select this clone, right click, and I select transform here, and next I drag this to here, and what I'll do now is to rotate this object in the y-axis. To do that, I click on this point here and I rotate it 108 degrees. And now I will use this arrow to move this to here. Now I press OK. Select these three objects and add transparency to the objects, pressing VT, and I have this. Now I can, for example, select the body, right click and select transform tool, and now I can drag this arrow and I will make this edge here touch this edge. Now I press OK here, and now I select this body, right click and transform option. Now here I click off and I use this arrow to place this, and I have this. Now I press OK, and now I will remove the transparency on these three objects by selecting this and press VT on the keyboard. This is the final models, and the next operation is to fuse this all parts here in a unique part. So to fuse these three parts here, I will move to the part workbench, select the three objects, and then select union tool. As you can see, this is the final model. We have only one object on the tree view. On this object, if we click on this arrow, we can see that we have the three objects inside this fusion. Okay, but here, if we zoom in, we can see that we have problems here on this shape here, on this second 3D model. We have this problem, and this is not the same thing that I have on this document. If I zoom in here, you can see that it's all fine here. I don't know why this happens on the FreeCAD 1.0, but if you try to use the FreeCAD 1.1Dev version, you will not achieve this result, for example. This result here, you will not be able to obtain on the FreeCAD 1.1Dev version. I don't know why this happens, but in the old stable version of FreeCAD, the FreeCAD 0.21.2, I created this model without problems. But I think this will be fixed in the developer version. We'll no more have these problems. Okay, thank you for watching this video. If you find this video useful, please don't forget to leave a like and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one.